The death of Mark Fu. On December 23, 1994, big wave surfing claimed one of its most famous victims. Mark Fu, a 36-year-old Hawaiian pro, traveled to Half Moon Bay, California to surf Mavericks, a break that had only recently been revealed to the wider surfing world. Mavericks was unlike anything most surfers had ever seen. Waves there could rise higher than 40 feet, generated by Pacific storms and breaking over a shallow reef. To ride Mavericks was to gamble with your life. That morning conditions were almost perfect. A winter swell had arrived, clean and powerful. Dozens of elite surfers were in the lineup, including Ken Bradshaw and Mike Parsons. Fu, known for his aggressive style and confidence in huge surf, paddled out. He caught several waves carving down their massive faces. But just before noon, he paddled into what would be his last ride. Fu dropped into a 20-foot wave, angled down the face, and set his line. But something went wrong. Near the bottom, his board caught an edge. Witnesses said he lost balance, falling forward. The wave exploded over him, driving him underwater with tremendous force. At Mavericks, wipeouts are violent. The weight of a collapsing wall of water can push a surfer down 30 or 40 feet, holding them under as the next wave arrives. Fu's board washed up, but he did not resurface. Other surfers searched the impact zone, but visibility was near zero. Hours later, his body was found floating near the harbor mouth, still attached to his leash. The cause of death was drowning. Fu had likely been knocked unconscious during the fall, or trapped underwater long enough to black out. His death sent shockwaves through the surfing community. Fu had surfed Waimea and Pipeline in Hawaii, waves just as dangerous, yet Mavericks had claimed him on his very first visit. To many, it underscored how unforgiving big wave spots can be. Even the most seasoned professionals are one mistake away from disaster. The death of Donnie Solomon. Just a year later, tragedy struck again. This time on Hawaii's North Shore at Waimea Bay, one of the original big wave arenas. On December 23, 1995, exactly 1 year to the day after Mark Fu's death, Donnie Solomon paddled out into a rising swell. Waimea that day was massive, with sets topping 25 feet. The lineup was crowded with the world's best. Solomon, a 22-year-old Californian, was not as famous as some of the veterans in the water, but he had the skill and the hunger to ride giants. He lined up deep, looking for a wave that would make his name. Late in the afternoon, Solomon paddled into one of the biggest waves of the day. He stroked hard, dropped in, and made it halfway down before the lip pitched over. The wave closed out, folding onto itself. Solomon disappeared in the whitewater. The force of the wave drove him to the bottom and held him there. Rescue teams on jet skis rushed to the impact zone, but Solomon did not surface. Minutes later, they pulled him from the water unconscious. CPR was performed on the beach, but efforts failed. He had drowned beneath one of Waimea's most powerful sets. For surfers on the North Shore, the parallels with Mark Fu's death the year before were chilling. Two young, ambitious surfers, both gone on December 23rd, both victims of wipeouts in giant surf. Waimea had been surfed for decades, but Solomon's death reminded everyone that even at a break with a long history of safety patrols and rescues, the ocean could still take a life in seconds. The death of Malik Joyeux. On December 2, 2005, French-Polynesian surfer Malik Joyeux paddled out at Pipeline on Oahu's North Shore. Pipeline is one of the most famous and dangerous waves in the world. Breaking over a shallow reef just yards from shore, its barrels are perfect but deadly. The reef rises like a knife edge beneath the wave, leaving no margin for error. Joyeux was 25, one of Tahiti's most respected surfers, known for charging Tihupo'o, a wave often called the heaviest in the world. For him, Pipeline was familiar territory. That morning, the surf was building, with 6 to 8 foot sets running hollow and fast. Crowds lined the beach, watching as surfers threaded through the barrels. Joyeux paddled into a set wave, dropped down the face, and set his line. He crouched low, entering the tube. For a moment, it looked like a perfect ride, but near the exit, the wave pinched shut. The lip collapsed directly on top of him. He was slammed headfirst into the reef and knocked unconscious. Rescue teams pulled him from the water within minutes, but he had already drowned. His death was a stark reminder that pipeline, even for the best surfers in the world, leaves no room for mistakes. A split second too deep, a misjudged angle, and the wave can become fatal. The surfing community mourned deeply. Joyeux was remembered as humble, fearless, and beloved both in Tahiti and Hawaii. His death added to Pipeline's long list of casualties, cementing its reputation as the deadliest wave in the world. The death of Sion Milosky. On March 16, 2011, Mavericks claimed another life. This time, Hawaiian big wave rider Sion Milosky. At 35 years old, Milosky was known as one of the most fearless surfers of his generation. He had recently won the North Shore's Underground Surfer of the Year award, recognized for his commitment to charging waves others feared. That afternoon, Mavericks was in full roar. A powerful northwest swell was hammering the reef, producing 60-foot faces. The water was chaotic, with shifting peaks and crushing lips. Milosky had flown from Hawaii just days earlier to chase the swell. He paddled out with a handful of other big wave chargers waiting for sets. Late in the day, Milosky caught a massive wave, dropping deep into the bowl. He made the steep descent but was clipped at the bottom as the lip collapsed. The wave detonated, sending tons of water onto him. He was driven deep underwater, held down for 2 full waves in a row. At Mavericks, 2-wave hold-downs can last more than a minute, with pressure that squeezes the lungs and leaves no chance to surface. Other surfers on jet skis searched frantically. Eventually, Milosky's body was spotted face down near the harbor mouth. He was pulled from the water and rushed to shore, but resuscitation attempts failed. Milosky's death shook the big wave community. He was one of the most admired underground chargers, a surfer who had built his life around chasing swells rather than sponsorships. For many, his death at Mavericks reinforced a grim truth. The line between glory and tragedy in big wave surfing is impossibly thin. The death of Kirk Passmore. On November 13, 2013, Kirk Passmore, a 32-year-old Hawaiian surfer, paddled into the waves at Alligator Rock, just west of Waimea Bay. A powerful swell had hit the North Shore, sending in waves over 20 feet. Passmore was an experienced big wave rider, but he made a mistake that day that would prove fatal. He was not wearing a flotation vest, equipment that had become standard among big wave surfers. Passmore caught a huge wave and dropped down the face. As he reached the bottom, the lip pitched and exploded, sending him over the falls. Witnesses saw him tumble in the whitewater, then disappear. Rescue teams raced to find him, but minutes turned into hours. His body was never recovered. It was one of the North Shore's most haunting losses. Without a flotation vest, Passmore likely sank quickly after losing consciousness. Despite days of searching, the ocean never gave him back. His empty board washing ashore was the only trace. For fellow surfers, his disappearance was a painful lesson. By 2013, safety vests had already saved countless lives, bringing surfers to the surface after wipeouts. Passmore's decision to surf without one cost him everything. His death became one of the clearest examples of how equipment can be the difference between survival and tragedy. If you've made it to the end of the video, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.